Welcome to the Explainer. All right, let's just jump right in. When we think about massive global threats, right, our minds usually go straight to the big stuff. Extreme weather events, giant predators, you name it. But the reality of what's actually reshaping our planet, completely wrecking ecosystems, and literally costing us billions of dollars, it's way, way smaller. We're talking about invasive pests. Today, we're going to break down the source material and figure out exactly how these tiny invaders operate because, understanding their playbook is step one if we ever want to figure out how to stop them.
So, quick question for you. What is the absolute most dangerous animal on Earth? Seriously, take a second and rethink your definition of a deadly predator. You're probably picturing what? A lion out on the savannah, maybe a great white shark? But to find the real threat, we've got to shift our focus away from those huge mammals and look down, look right at our feet, and sometimes, literally, in our own backyards. The creatures that are actually causing the most profound demographic and ecological catastrophes, they're the tiny invaders slipping right through our borders, completely unnoticed.
Section 1. Devastating global food supplies.
Okay, let's look at this lineup of absolute agricultural villains. First up, we've got the brown marmorated stink bug. Originally from East Asia, this guy pierces right into fruit and vegetable tissue. We're talking apples, peaches, tomatoes, and just renders them completely unsellable. Then there's the spotted lanternfly from China, which is an absolute nightmare for vineyards and orchards. And of course, the fall armyworm from the Americas, just utterly decimating maize crops. Now here's the crucial takeaway. In their native ranges, these bugs are kept in check by natural predators, like parasitic wasps, but thanks to human trade, hitching rides on shipping crates or imported stone, they get dropped into entirely new environments. Without those natural predators around, boom, they transform from everyday insects into unstoppable economic disasters.
And if we zoom in on the spotted lanternfly, what it leaves behind is honestly arguably worse than the sap it steals in the first place. It produces this stuff called honeydew. Sounds kind of harmless, right? Maybe even nice? Well, it's not. It is a sugary waste product, and they excrete it in massive, massive quantities. It basically coats the leaves, the branches, just everything beneath the plant. And then, this thick, black, sooty mold colonizes that sticky film, literally choking out the sunlight and killing the vegetation. Just to put that into perspective, in Pennsylvania alone, the potential annual losses were estimated at a staggering $324 million, just from this one insect setting up shop.
Moving on to bees. The Varroa mite is actually responsible for more honeybee colony deaths than any other single cause on the planet. Originally, it parasitized the Asian honeybee. Now, those bees co-evolved over thousands of years, developing these specific grooming behaviors just to keep the mites in check. They knew how to handle them. But sometime back in the 20th century, the mite made the jump to the Western honeybee. And the Western honeybee, it had zero evolutionary defenses. None. These mites feed on the bees' fat bodies, which are crucial for regulating their immune function. So the bees don't just get physically drained, their immune systems become entirely compromised. It is a catastrophic chain reaction when a parasite finds a totally naive host. And considering bee pollination is worth over $200 billion annually, yeah, this is a massive, massive food security problem.
Now, if you want to talk about a truly terrifying biological shift, we have to talk about a process called gregarization. Under normal, everyday conditions, the desert locust is just a bug, a solitary, fairly unremarkable brown grasshopper. But if you give it the exact right combination of unexpected rainfall and crowding, it literally transforms. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. Its color changes to this vivid yellow and black. Its behavior totally flips to actively seeking out other locusts. Its actual physiology alters. It stops operating as an individual insect, right? And basically becomes a cell in a single, massive, distributed organism.
And just to wrap our heads around the scale of that organism, 80 million. 80 million. That is the staggering number of locusts that can pack into just a single square kilometer of a mature swarm. To put that into perspective, a swarm the size of Paris can consume as much vegetation in a single day as half the entire population of France. It is an absolutely incredible, almost incomprehensible level of consumption.
But here's the thing. Pests don't just swarm locally anymore. They conquer globally, and they do it at terrifying speeds. Take the fall armyworm. Pre-2016, it was a manageable agricultural pest, pretty much contained to the Americas. Then, boom, early 2016, we get the first detections in Nigeria and Togo over in Africa. By 2018, literally just 2 years later, it had reached virtually every single country in sub-Saharan Africa. And present day, it has expanded into over 100 countries across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East.
How does that even happen? Well, the adult moth can travel hundreds of miles on nighttime winds. When you combine wind currents with constant human movement, our geographic borders are rendered completely meaningless against these guys.
Section 2. The silent forest killers.
So, the Asian longhorned beetle is actually a stunningly beautiful insect to look at. But what its larvae do, it's agonizing. They tunnel deep into the heartwood of hardwood trees, maples, elms, birches, and once they're in there, they just chew their way through the living tissue, the exact tissue that carries water and nutrients up and down the tree. The reason this is so incredibly dangerous is that all this irreversible damage is happening completely hidden from view. You have no idea it's happening. By the time the adult beetle finally chews its way out, leaving this perfectly round little exit hole, it's too late. The tree's vascular system is completely severed from the inside out. The tree's already doomed.
35,000. That is the exact number of trees that the city of Worcester, Massachusetts had to systematically chop down and destroy just to stop one single outbreak of the Asian longhorned beetle back in 2008. Because this infestation is totally hidden under the bark, the only approved way to eradicate it is literally destroying every infested tree plus every potential host tree within a set radius. We're talking entire neighborhoods totally stripped of their shade and their beauty. It is just a massive, staggering, emotional and financial cost for a community to bear.
Now, while we might actually have a shot at eradicating the Asian longhorned beetle if we catch it early enough, the emerald ash borer, that's a textbook example of what happens when an invader just moves way too fast. First detected in Michigan and Ontario back in 2002, this tiny metallic green bug has already killed hundreds of millions of native North American ash trees. They create these highly distinctive, totally deadly S-shaped galleries right under the bark. And honestly, eradication is no longer even considered biologically feasible. It's just out of our hands at this point. It's too widespread. Our current defense basically relies on importing parasitic wasps from China and crossing our fingers that they can slow it down.
Section 3. Collapsing local ecosystems.
Okay, get this. A single zebra mussel can filter up to 1 whole liter of water every single day. Now, in theory, filtering water, making it clearer, sounds like a good thing, right? But it is actually an ecological death sentence, and it plays out in 4 brutal steps. Step 1, millions of these mussels filter out all the microscopic algae. Step 2, without that foundational food source, the zooplankton populations completely crash. Step 3, the small fish that rely on that zooplankton rapidly collapse. And step 4, the entire freshwater food web just breaks down completely. When these guys showed up in the Great Lakes, native mussel species in some areas were entirely wiped out within just a few years. It's honestly one of the fastest ecological collapses we have ever documented in North American freshwater systems.
And then, of course, we have the cane toad, which operates basically like a comic book supervillain. Back in 1935, 102 of these toads were introduced to Australia as a biocontrol experiment. The plan? Have them eat the pesky cane beetles. Well, the toads couldn't reach the beetles, didn't care about the beetles, and just decided to eat literally everything else instead. Today, that population has exploded to an estimated 200 million, and their ultimate weapon? These incredibly powerful bufadinolide toxins stored right in their shoulder glands. Native Australian predators, like freshwater crocs and certain snakes, they evolved with 0 mammalian toads in their environment, so they have absolutely no instinct to avoid them. They take a bite of the toad, get hit with a fatal dose of poison, and they're dead in minutes.
But hey, the devastation definitely isn't limited to Australia. Let's look at the Florida Everglades. We've seen a shocking 90% collapse in mammal populations, raccoons, opossums, bobcats, you name it, in areas where the Burmese python has set up shop. Pythons are these incredibly cryptic ambush-style predators, and they can grow to over 5 meters long. They just lie there completely motionless, and then strike prey up to the size of a full-grown deer, swallowing it whole and leaving 0 trace. Because of them, the Everglades is literally being emptied out. It's becoming a much quieter, emptier place.
Section 4, threatening global human health.
Just think about this quote for a second. An estimated 20% of the entire world's food supply is destroyed annually by just 2 species. That staggering statistic belongs to the black rat and the brown rat. Between direct consumption, contamination, and damage, the sheer economic and historical weight of these animals is just astounding. Remember, the black rat brought the fleas that caused the bubonic plague, literally reshaping European society forever. And today, alongside the brown rat, they are still ravaging global agriculture and causing unbelievable infrastructure damage in cities worldwide just by gnawing through plumbing and electrical wiring.
But if we are talking about the ultimate vector of disease today, it is, without a doubt, the Aedes mosquito. This thing is tiny, I mean small enough to fit on your fingernail.
But it is so perfectly adapted to human cities, it's terrifying. Unlike the mosquitoes that carry malaria and mostly bite at dusk, Aedes mosquitoes are super aggressive daytime biters. And what makes them so impossible to deal with is their breeding ecology. They literally only need a tiny urban puddle. They can breed in a bottle cap, a clogged gutter, a discarded tire in an alleyway. Any tiny volume of standing water that lasts for just a week is enough for them to multiply and spread deadly diseases like Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. And the real-world impact of those diseases? 390 million. That is the estimated number of global dengue fever infections caused by Aedes mosquitoes every single year. It is no wonder the World Health Organization calls it the most rapidly expanding mosquito-borne viral disease on the entire planet.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about where this all leaves us. With global temperatures steadily rising, which basically rolls out the red carpet for pests like the Aedes mosquito to push into totally new latitudes, an endless massive global transit that renders our borders essentially meaningless, do we actually have the biological tools to stop these invaders before it's too late? I mean, yes, we're seeing some really cool experiments with sterile mosquitoes and parasitic wasps, but are we deploying them fast enough? We are in a genuine high-stakes arms race against nature's most resilient pests. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and hey, keep your eyes open out there, because as we've seen, the real threats are very often the ones you can barely even see.